At first light, Mauritius looks almost unreal. A line of mountains rises behind fields of sugarcane. Fishing boats drift inside a turquoise lagoon. In Port Louis, shutters lift above narrow shops, while the first buses arrive carrying workers into the capital. A vendor ties a cloth around a stack of vegetables. A school child checks the time. Somewhere nearby, a kettle begins to whistle. This is the side of Mauritius that a resort brochure cannot hold. More than 1 million people share this compact republic in the Indian Ocean. Most live on the main island of Mauritius, while tens of thousands live on Rodrigues, and smaller communities are scattered across the outer islands. Their homes sit close to the sea, close to one another, and close to a history that brought families here from Africa, India, China, Europe, and other islands. The distances are short, but daily life crosses many worlds: crowded city streets, cool upland towns, old cane fields, fishing villages, technology offices, temples, mosques, churches, and family kitchens, where several traditions can meet in one meal. At the end of 2025, the Republic of Mauritius had an estimated population of just over 1.24 million across a land area of roughly 2,007 square kilometers. So what does it really mean to live in Mauritius? Not to visit for a week, not to watch the lagoon from behind a hotel window, but to wake here, commute here, raise children here, earn a living here, prepare for storms here, and still call this small piece of volcanic land home. Morning begins early in Port Louis. Before the heat settles between the buildings, people move through the capital with purpose. Buses release passengers near markets and office streets. The light rail carries commuters from towns along the central urban corridor. Motorcycles slip through gaps in traffic. Shopkeepers roll open metal doors, while delivery workers carry crates toward the central market. Inside the city changes scale. The broad view of mountains and harbor disappears. Now there are hands choosing tomatoes, knives trimming herbs, coins passing over counters, and voices moving quickly through Mauritian Creole. The market is not only a place to buy food, it is a daily meeting point where the island's languages, memories, and habits overlap. A customer may speak Creole to a vegetable seller French while answering a phone call and English later at work. These languages do not always sit in separate rooms. They pass through the same day and sometimes through the same conversation. Creole is the language heard most often at home. It carries jokes, impatience, affection, and everyday explanation. In the 2022 census, 9 out of 10 residents reported speaking only Creole, most often at home. Watch one vendor for a few minutes. He begins by stacking produce into careful pyramids. The colors are part display and part calculation. What should be sold first? What will survive the afternoon heat? Which customer will ask for a better price? A familiar shopper arrives. There is no dramatic greeting. Just a few words, a quick inspection of the fruit, a small negotiation, and the transaction is finished. But this ordinary exchange is the heartbeat of the city. Port Louis is often described through monuments and waterfront views. Its real energy comes from repetition, the same bus stop, the same tea counter, the same market aisle, and the same faces returning until strangers become known. From the capital, the island rises. The road climbs toward Rose Hill, Quatre Bornes Vacoas, and Curepeep. The air becomes cooler. Homes stand closer together. Shops, schools, offices, and transport lines create an almost continuous urban corridor through the center of Mauritius. This is where the image of a quiet tropical island begins to break apart. Mauritius is densely settled. Morning traffic can stretch across the central plateau, and the trip to work or school is a major part of the day for thousands of people. The Metro Express has changed one of the island's busiest commuting routes, but buses remain essential. At a station, the sequence is familiar. People wait under a narrow roof, a vehicle appears, bags are lifted, children step aboard, and the doors close as traffic begins moving again. For students and many older or disabled residents, public transport is more than convenience. Under the free travel scheme, eligible students travel without fare between home and their educational institution on school days, while qualifying older and disabled residents receive broader free travel access. Public health care is also provided without direct charges at the point of use for Mauritian citizens. Free education is guaranteed through the public system and is compulsory until age 16. At public tertiary institutions, the free tertiary education scheme covers tuition for a first certificate diploma or undergraduate degree, although administration and certain other costs can still remain. These services do not remove every difficulty. A public hospital can still mean waiting. A free school place does not guarantee the same outcome for every child. A transport card cannot shorten every journey. But on an island where space is limited and household budgets matter, access changes what families believe is possible. A child can leave a coastal town in the morning, travel inland to class, and return before evening. A pensioner can reach a clinic without paying the full cost of the trip. A university student can move between home and campus without needing a private car. This is not paradise as a slogan. It is infrastructure becoming personal. A school morning reveals another side of the island. Uniforms appear at bus stops before offices are fully open. Parents adjust collars, check bags, and repeat instructions that children have heard many times. At the school gate, the island's diversity becomes ordinary. Different family histories arrive in the same courtyard, follow the same timetable, and prepare for the same examinations. Education carries unusual weight in Mauritius because it is connected to the country's idea of progress. For many parents, school is not simply preparation for employment. It is the route by which the next generation may move beyond the limits of a small island. That hope creates pressure. Homework matters. Examinations matter. Transport schedules matter. Extra lessons can become part of family planning. A parent may leave work early to collect a child, while a grandparent supervises the evening meal. The support system around one student can involve several generations. Follow the child home. The uniform is changed. A snack appears. Books open on a table that may also be used for dinner. Outside, traffic continues. Inside, the family measures the day through assignments, messages from teachers, and plans for tomorrow. The scene is quiet, but it connects directly to the island's economic future. Mauritius cannot rely on size or abundant natural resources. Knowledge, skill, and the ability to adapt have become central to how the country imagines its next generation. Beyond the towns, the land still carries the shape of sugar. For generations, cane fields covered much of the island's cultivated ground. Today, Mauritius is no longer an economy built around a single crop, and most workers earn their living in services, manufacturing, construction, trade, tourism, finance, technology, transport, education, healthcare, and public institutions. Yet sugarcane remains visible across large parts of the landscape outside the densest urban areas. Stand beside a field in the late morning. The leaves scrape against one another in the wind. A worker checks the edge of a row. A truck waits on a narrow road. In the distance, a volcanic peak rises above the cane like a dark sail. The scene appears timeless, but the work has changed. Machines now perform much of what once required large teams. Estates have become more efficient. Some factories have closed or consolidated. In other places, former agricultural land has been absorbed by roads housing shopping centers and new business districts. For the island, this is a story of survival through reinvention. Mauritius moved from sugar into textiles, tourism, finance, seafood processing, and information technology. That transition created jobs and raised living standards, but it also produced new tensions. Office towers can stand within sight of older neighborhoods. A hotel can earn foreign currency on a coast where a local household worries about the weekly food bill. A graduate may hold a degree, yet accept work below the level of training they expected. In 2025, 3 out of every 4 employed people worked in the tertiary sector. Official labor statistics also counted more than 45,000 tertiary qualified workers in occupations classified as skills-related underemployment. The island's economy is more diverse than it once was, but daily security still depends on wages, transport costs, imported goods, and whether new opportunities grow quickly enough. At lunchtime, that larger economy becomes something small enough to hold. A worker opens a paper parcel. Inside may be rice lentils, pickles, vegetables, rougail, or a folded flatbread bought from a roadside stall. The meal is inexpensive, quick, and layered with history. Indian spices, Creole sauces, Chinese noodles, French techniques, and island ingredients do not appear as separate chapters. They have been cooking beside one another for generations. In a family kitchen, the process matters more than the label. Onions hit hot oil. Mustard seeds begin to pop. A spoon scrapes the bottom of a pot. Someone washes coriander, while another person tears bread into smaller pieces. A grandmother gives an instruction without measuring anything. A child tastes the sauce and is told to wait. This is how culture survives, most often not in a museum, but in repeated movements. Mauritian food is frequently described as a fusion of Indian, African, Chinese, European, and Creole influences. But the word fusion can make it sound accidental. These dishes were shaped by necessity, memory, trade, migration, and adaptation. Families cooked with what the island offered and what ships could bring. Recipes changed because ingredients changed. Techniques crossed community lines because neighbors, co-workers, and relatives shared meals. At a street stall, dal puri is rolled thin, cooked on a hot plate, folded around curry and chutney, and passed to the next customer within seconds. Nearby, a glass of alauda cools in the heat. In another part of town, fried noodles are prepared in a wok. Along the coast, fish may move from a small boat to a market table in the same morning. Follow that fish. Before sunrise, a boat leaves a village shoreline and crosses the protected water of the lagoon. The engine is low and steady. One person watches the surface while another prepares a line or net. Beyond the reef, the ocean changes color and movement. Inside the lagoon, the water is calmer, but catches are never guaranteed. When the boat returns, the work continues. The fish are lifted onto shore, sorted, weighed, cleaned, and sold. A family member may already be waiting. A buyer asks what is freshest. A knife moves through silver skin. What looked like a beautiful seascape from a distance becomes income food and risk at close range. Tourism also depends on this coast, but not in the same way. Visitors see clear water. Fishers read wind currents, fuel seasons, and the condition of the reef. The same lagoon can be a postcard, a workplace, a storm barrier, and a warning. The sea gives Mauritius much of its beauty, but it also defines the island's limits. There is no vast interior waiting beyond the coast. Homes, hotels, roads, farms, public beaches, fishing grounds, and protected ecosystems must all negotiate with one another on limited land. A large share of the population lives in coastal areas, and climate change is no longer an abstract subject here. Rising seas, stronger, heat, flash floods, cyclones, storm, surges, coral stress, and pressure on water supplies can affect transport, tourism, fisheries, housing, agriculture, and food at the same time. A 2026 World Bank climate report estimated that about 1/3 of the population is concentrated in coastal areas and identified rising sea level heat waves, droughts, intense cyclones, flash floods, and storm surges among the country's major development risks. The response begins long before a storm arrives. A family checks shutters. Loose objects are brought inside. Phones are charged. Water and basic food are stored. A fisherman secures his boat. Schools and offices follow official warnings. Weather bulletins become part of the day's conversation. Then the wind changes. Rain crosses the roof in sheets. Roads fill quickly in low areas. The island that looked open and bright only hours earlier turns inward. Families wait, listen, and measure the storm by sound. Afterward, the first actions are practical. Clear a drain. Move a fallen branch, check on an older relative, reopen a shop, see whether the bus route is running. Inspect the boat, look at the beach, and notice what the waves removed. Resilience here is rarely dramatic. It is a chain of small responsibilities shared across a densely settled island. The longer threat is quieter. A reef does not disappear in a single afternoon. A beach narrows season by season. Water becomes harder to manage as households, agriculture, and tourism compete for the same supply. Mauritian authorities have monitored coastal erosion and carried out protection or rehabilitation work at numerous public beaches and vulnerable shoreline sites. These changes force the country to ask a difficult question. How can an island continue growing without damaging the systems that make life possible? The answer will not come from tourism alone. It will involve better public transport, coastal protection, renewable energy, careful fisheries, management, water reform, and new kinds of work connected to the ocean. But every national plan eventually reaches an ordinary person, a hotel employee learning a new skill, a farmer changing how water is used, a student choosing a career, or a family deciding whether the future still feels secure here. To understand why Mauritius feels so culturally dense, return to Port Louis and walk only a short distance. A mosque appears near a market street. A church stands beyond a row of shops. Hindu temples, Chinese religious sites, and other places of worship belong to the same urban landscape. Different calendars, foods, ceremonies, and family histories exist within a country small enough that people meet constantly at school, at work, on buses, in hospitals, and in public offices. This coexistence is real, but it should not be turned into a fairy tale. Harmony does not mean everyone is the same. It does not erase unequal histories or make every disagreement disappear. Mauritius was shaped by colonization, slavery, and indentured labor. These are not decorative pieces of the island's identity. They explain who arrived, who worked, who held power, and why certain traditions remain so important. At Aapravasi Ghat, the stone remains of an immigration depot stand beside the modern movement of Port Louis. Between 1834 and 1920, more than 462,000 migrants, mainly from India, passed through this small depot before working on sugar estates in Mauritius or traveling onward to other colonies. The location is small, the history is not. Imagine arriving after weeks at sea, stepping onto unfamiliar ground, and being recorded not as a visitor, but as contract-bound labor. For many families, the island's present began with that moment. On the southwest coast, Morne carries another memory. Its steep slopes provided refuge for people escaping slavery during the 18th and early 19th centuries. Seen from the lagoon, the mountain is beautiful. Seen through its history, it becomes a landscape of resistance. These two places face different directions, but together they reveal the foundation beneath modern Mauritius. People were moved across oceans, often without freedom, and then built communities that outlasted the systems that controlled them. That history lives not only in monuments. It survives in surnames, religious practices, food, music, language, and the stubborn importance of family. Late in the afternoon, a courtyard begins to fill. A drum is warmed. Chairs are moved aside. Someone tests a triangle. Children watch the older musicians, while adults continue talking over the first rhythm. Then the Revan begins. Traditional Mauritian Sega grew within the Creole community and carries memories connected to slavery, but it is not frozen in grief. The music moves. A singer improvises in Creole. The tempo rises. Dancers respond with short steps and turning hips. A frame drum, a box rattle, and a triangle hold the rhythm. One person starts, others join. This is the difference between watching culture and living inside it. Sega can speak about love, humor, hardship, work, and ordinary frustration. It turns experience into something the group can hold together. UNESCO inscribed traditional Mauritian Sega on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity in 2014. It recognized the music's Creole lyrics, improvisation, percussion, dance, and role in creating encounters across communities and social groups. Its real protection, however, comes from repetition. A child copying a step, a musician teaching how to make or play an instrument, and a family making space for the music at a gathering. Across the island, other traditions are passed on in similar ways. A prayer learned from grandparents, a wedding song repeated by women in a family, a recipe made for a religious festival, lamps arranged outside a home, food sent to neighbors. Public celebrations are visible, but the deeper continuity happens indoors, in courtyards, kitchens, and community halls. Mauritius is often called a melting pot. A better image may be a woven cloth. The threads remain visible. Their colors do not disappear. Strength comes from the way they hold together while staying distinct. On Sunday, the coast changes character. Public beaches fill with local families, carrying folding chairs, cooking pots, coolers, footballs, and speakers. Shade is claimed beneath casuarina trees. Children move between the sand and the lagoon. Someone cuts pineapple and serves it with salt chili and tamarind. Music competes with conversation. This is not the private stillness sold in luxury advertising. It is social space. Mauritius's official tourism platform describes Sundays as the time when many beaches come alive with local families and friends gathering for picnics. A beach day may bring together relatives who live in different parts of the island and have spent the week moving between work, school, and traffic. Food is shared. News is exchanged. Older family members sit where they can watch everyone at once. Teenagers drift toward the water but remain within calling distance. The lagoon belongs to leisure for a few hours. Yet even here, work remains visible. Vendors prepare for one of the busiest days of the week. Food trucks open beside the road. Boat operators wait for customers. Cleaners manage what the crowd leaves behind. The public beach is simultaneously a family room, a small economy, and part of a fragile coastline. By late afternoon, smoke from cooking fires thins in the breeze. Containers are packed. Children are rinsed with fresh water. Cars and buses begin carrying everyone home. The beach becomes quiet again, but the meaning of the day remains. On an island where houses and roads can feel crowded, the coast gives families room to be together. Evening reaches different parts of the island in different ways. In Port Louis office, workers hurry toward transport stations before the city empties. On the central plateau, lights appear behind windows as the air cools. In coastal villages, boats settle against their ropes. Near tourist beaches, restaurants prepare for another night, while employees finish long shifts far from the rooms they serve. The island's beauty and its household costs exist side by side. Food and transport take large shares of household spending. Between the 2017 and 2023 household budget surveys, average spending in both categories rose substantially. As a small island economy, Mauritius also depends heavily on imported fuel, food equipment, and other goods. Changes in shipping costs, exchange rates, or global prices can eventually appear in the weekly budget of an ordinary household. This is where national success becomes personal arithmetic. Rent, electricity, school supplies, transport, medicine or treatment outside the public system, support for older parents, a wedding contribution, repairs after heavy rain. The month is divided into obligations before anything is saved. For workers in lower-paid occupations, the gap between the island seen by visitors and the island experienced through wages can feel wide. Tourism creates employment and brings foreign exchange into the country, but not every job offers the same stability, pay, or path forward. At the same time, education has raised expectations. Young Mauritians see careers in technology, finance, health research, education, and international business. Some find those opportunities at home. Others look abroad. The decision to leave is rarely a rejection of the island. Often, it is an attempt to build the future that education taught them to imagine. And leaving does not always mean disappearing. Family connections cross oceans. Money returns. Calls happen at odd hours. A person may build a life abroad while still measuring time by festivals, recipes, family news, and the next visit home. For a small island, migration is not only history, It remains part of the present. There is another Mauritius beyond the main island. The Republic also includes Rodrigues and smaller outer islands, each with its own scale and rhythm. Rodrigues lies hundreds of kilometers away with a smaller population and communities whose lives are closely connected to farming, fishing, crafts, services, and the sea. At the end of 2025, the population of Rodrigues was estimated at 44,797, compared with almost 1.2 million on the main island of Mauritius. Mentioning Rodrigues matters because it prevents one island from standing in for an entire country. Mauritius is compact, but it is not uniform. The north, south, east, west, central plateau, and outer islands do not experience the same whether employment development or access. The capital is not the coast. A resort district is not a farming village. A technology office in Ebene is not a fish market in Mahabourg. The more closely you look, the less useful the postcard becomes. Consider a day in a coastal household. Before breakfast, one person may check the weather and the boat. Another prepares children for school. A grandparent waters plants before the sun becomes strong. The family moves in different directions toward the sea, a hotel, a bus stop, a shop, a classroom, or an office. By late afternoon, those separate paths return to the same house. Shoes collect near the doorway. Food is reheated. Someone tells a story from work. A child completes homework, while adults discuss prices, transport a relative's health, or plans for the weekend. The television may carry news in French or English. The conversation around it continues in Creole. Nothing here looks extraordinary. That is precisely why it matters. A country is not only its monuments, policies, or rankings. It is the way ordinary days are organized. Who leaves first in the morning? Who cooks? Who travels farthest? Who cares for children and older relatives? Which expenses can wait? Which traditions must not be lost? Mauritius has spent decades proving that a small island does not have to remain dependent on one industry. The country transformed itself from a sugar-based economy into a more complex upper-middle-income economy led largely by services. Today, 3/4 of employed people work in the tertiary sector. Tourism remains important, but so do finance, trade, transport, education, healthcare, information, technology, public administration, and other services. That transformation can be seen in the landscape. Glass offices rise in Ebene. Warehouses and factories sit near major roads. The light rail links older towns with newer business districts. Shopping centers have expanded. Former cane land carries housing developments. Progress is visible, but it is not simple. When land becomes more valuable for construction, agriculture retreats. When jobs concentrate around central business areas, traffic intensifies. When the economy needs highly skilled workers, education must keep pace. When graduates cannot find work matching their qualifications, the promise of mobility weakens. Mauritius now faces the challenge that comes after successful transformation: how to make the next stage more inclusive, more productive, and more resilient. The island cannot compete through size. It has to compete through knowledge, stability, connection, and the ability to change. That may sound like an economic strategy, but it also describes the people. Mauritian families have adapted across generations. They carried languages through colonial rule. They turned inherited recipes into local food. They created music from pain and celebration. They built religious life side by side. They moved from fields into factories, from factories into offices, and from offices into digital networks. Adaptation is not a slogan here. It is a family history. Night settles over the lagoon. From a distance, the island becomes quiet again. Mountains turn black against the sky. Lights follow the roads and gather around towns. The reef holds a pale line where waves break beyond the shore. It would be easy to end with the beaches, but the most important image is smaller. A market vendor covering the last produce of the day. A student stepping off a bus with a backpack. A fisherman tying one final knot. A nurse beginning a night shift. A grandmother placing food on the table. A young worker opening a laptop after everyone else has gone to sleep. These are the people who make Mauritius more than a destination. The island is not untouched. It is not effortless. Its history contains slavery, indentured labor, and resistance. Its present contains rising household costs, crowded roads, uneven opportunity, and climate risk. Its future will require difficult choices about land-water energy work and the sea. Yet Mauritius has one advantage that cannot be photographed from a drone. It has generations of experience living with difference in a very small space. Here, daily life demands negotiation between old and new, coast and city, tourism and local needs, private ambition and family duty, memory and reinvention. The lagoon may be the first thing visitors notice, but for the people who live here, home is built elsewhere in the morning commute, the market conversation, the shared meal, the warning before a storm, the rhythm of a drum, and the knowledge that almost every road eventually returns to someone familiar. This is Mauritius beyond the resorts, not a perfect island, a living one, and perhaps that is more remarkable than paradise.